Hello, everyone. We apologise for the 6-minute wait now. Sorry about that. Having technical issues, which we've luckily got sorted just within time. We should just coincide with the bad weather we've had the last couple of days. But we're here, ready for the next whiskey tasting, and it is Father's Day. So we obviously toyed with the idea of when to do it. So we have settled on doing it on the Saturday because last year we did it on the Sunday, and we did find that people obviously had plans even during lockdown, it may seem, whereas this time round we did it this way, and as it happens, people message saying they can't watch live today because they're going out for dinner today, so you can't win. But we're here. It's going to be a great tasting. We've got some fabulous whiskey to go through. We've also got, we're actually going to start today with the cocktail that you've got in your pack there, so it's actually labelled cocktail. I'll obviously get Jess introduced and we'll do like an intro, and then we'll start with that. If you can just make sure you have your tasting glass, so either like your little stem tasting glass. I've got my tasting glass here, and then I mentioned on the email just to have potentially like a rocks glass, something like this, and then some ice, and I just got a little spoon. We're not going to go too technical on making this cocktail. It's just a simple kind of pour over ice, but we just want to kind of do it in a slow motion. And we'll just, if you can just have those items ready, that'd be great. And you have the sample bottles 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll stick to that order for the evening as well. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me introduce Jas. Give me 1 second. I'll bring him in.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, yeah. We got there in the end.
Yeah, sorry, my fault. It was all my fault.
And that's gremlins for you. Gremlins for you. So let me just hide that out of the way. Cool. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll disappear for a sec. I'll leave you just to do a quick intro to what we're doing and the whiskies. I'll just go and check our socials again and make sure no one's lost and how many we're expecting to come in today to watch. There's quite a few watching tomorrow actually, so there shouldn't be too many watching live. And then I'll come back on and we can start with that cocktail.
Yeah, so you can come on and tell them about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So guys, as Shane said, it's Father's Day. Welcome to our tasting. We've got 4 really good whiskies for you to try tonight. I don't think we might have done 1 or 2 of them before, but I think a different tasting. So hopefully they're going to be new to you. As Shane said, we've got a cocktail. So why don't we go ahead and pour that cocktail into a glass, and we can talk about that while we sort of do the intro, and you can sip on that and try all that. So go ahead, pour that into a glass, get some ice, get a nice sort of rocks glass, pour that over, give it a stir, and enjoy that. And then Shane will just sort of tell you in a second how he's made it or how we made it.
Cool.
And here you are.
Yeah, everyone's pretty much in, so that's fine. Yeah, because we've got, by my count, yeah, we've got about another 6 or 7 watching tomorrow, so that's about right. Yes, so with this cocktail, just one thing I would say is if you can have enough ice in the glass. So I'm going to just put in, and I've got quite a relatively small rocks glass here, you can see. I'm just going to go with maybe say, yeah, so I'm going to start with that. So I've pretty much filled the glass up, and then just yeah, simply pour it over, and you can pretty much do the whole measure if you want. I think that's fine. Why not? We might as well start as we mean to go on, and then just give that a stir. If you can, maybe just about 15-20 revolutions, just to get that ice to really chill down the drink. It also adds a little bit of dilution in, so we have kind of plans for that. You always need, any cocktail you do, you need a little bit of dilution that comes from the ice, either by shaking or by stirring. So just giving it that time to add a bit of dilution in will just work perfectly. What I've done, having said that, if I just get my scroll bar here, I have written down the spec, and I kind of was just playing around with a name, and I went with Silken Peaches, which will become self-explanatory in a second. So what we're going to do, when it comes to whiskies, yes, we always try and stick with maybe an old-fashioned style drink. It's hard to step away from that. I think if we went for like a whiskey sour, it becomes a bit more it's a bit awkward because we can't send the perishable items across to you like the lemon juice, and then it's a lot more for you guys to do as well. In all honesty, I think I prefer the classic style cocktails when it comes to whiskey and bourbon and items of that nature. But one thing that popped into my head is that we've always like looked at versions of old fashions, Manhattans, and then we've always liked Negronis. And we had this one particular item hanging around in the back of the bar, or back of the shop, rather, that we've always been meaning to use in the tasting. And the flavour sticks in my head. And it's a product which is actually a gin peach liqueur by G-Vine called June. And the very first moment I tried this drink, I was instantly thrown back to my childhood, and it kind of reminds you of Tixilix, the medicine, like to a T. And then you kind of realize all that time when you were young and you're trying to think out what is that flavor. We now know Tixilix is peach. So that's the idea. But thinking of the flavor tone, it kind of lended itself to work with a particular whiskey we touched on a few weeks back in an Irish tasting, which was Silky. And Jasper, the guy was mentioning that peach works quite well as some kind of pairing with that particular whiskey. So with that in mind, we thought, well, let's try and put the whiskey and the gin together, which wouldn't all be a normal pairing, and then keep some vermouth in there. So we went with Dolly Sweet Vermouth, and we kind of came up with almost like a Negroni old-fashioned cross, and that's what we did. So the spec is on there at the bottom there. So we use essentially in a full cocktail, you'd have 50 mils of the Silky Peated, 20 mils of the June G-Vine, and 20 mils of the Sweet Donna Vermouth. And then right at the last second, I put in a dash of Angostura bitters, and it was just to maybe keep the sweetness at bay. There's a touch in there, but just because at the end of the day, June is a sugar content, so we haven't gone with an idea of putting in sugar first of all and using that Angostura bitter. That is your sugar content, and it just needs to be kept at bay slightly with the Angostura bitters. But once that's stirred over ice, give it a sip, guys, and let us know what you think. Like I say, it's a bit of an experiment. We think it works. And it's definitely still, yeah, it comes across actually very, with that little bit of dilution. I'm trying to think what the notes I get though, because the peatiness is actually coming through quite a bit, don't you think, Jas? I think.
So I haven't tried it, so I'm going to try it after.
Oh, right.
But with that dilution, it should open up a little bit, and it should allow the spirits to.
It has got that quite. It has got that quite medicinal tone you might get from it, which is good. That's the kind of thing you want to keep. I'm definitely getting that peach come through. The sort of fruity notes from the Campari as well. But the whiskey, it's there, and right at the end of it, you're getting that peat come through. So
really,
like a rough kick at the end. But it's got. It's. I'm not too sure whether or not I would have preferred maybe an extra drop of Angostura bitters.
Okay, just to keep it a bit drier.
Yeah, it's got quite a bit of sweetness from what you might expect. Yeah.
Maybe that's just over time. That's just now developed. When we first poured it out, it was still quite dry, wasn't it? So maybe that's just now come through. Yeah.
Yeah, it could well be. But there's quite a few different notes going on there. You've got your sort of vanillas, the caramels, peach, fruit, red fruits. Yeah, it's very nice. But I think it'd be touch. I could think it'd be a touch drier from some Angostura bitters, maybe even orange bitters or something along that lines.
Yeah, orange would have been quite nice. Yeah.
But it's nice. It's a nice light drink. I would actually go as far to say it's a good summer cocktail actually. It's not overly warming like you would expect a Negroni or a Manhattan to be. It's lighter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. It's good. Good thing to keep us
I'll
going.
try it later. I look forward to trying it later.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess while you enjoy that, do sip away because we've got a bit of stuff to go through before we go into our next one. So you've got some time. And I thought when we did our first tasting way back in March 2020, I explained a little bit about the word whiskey, how it came about, And seeing as we've got some new people since then, I've not really sort of ever sort of come back to it. So I thought I'd just mention some of that now, and sort of just explain to people how tiny piece of the history of whiskey and how it came about and the relevance to what we're doing tonight. So so really the word whiskey, right? So it stems from a Gaelic word called Uishka Beha, and Uishka Beha is basically the term used for water of life. So when spirit distillation was discovered way back in the 12th century by Arabs, and Irish monks sort of picked up from them and brought it back, they were essentially making water of life. So the Latin for water of life is aqua vitae, which sort of spread across the world. So Scandinavians had aquavit, the French had eau de vie. All of this means water of life, and Gaelic for water of life is Uishka Beha or Uskavar, however the dialect is that you say, but essentially Uskavar or Uishka Beha is water of life. So over a period of time, as travelers took this water of life from Scotland through into the lowlands, down into England, and sort of eventually right the way south, and over a number of decades, Uishka Beha, they dropped the Beha, so it became Whiskey or Uishka, and then it became a whiskey. Then they dropped the U, and it became whiskey or whiskey, and eventually over a period of time became whiskey. And so that's where the word whiskey comes from, but essentially from the word water of life in Gaelic. So, you know, and a lot of whiskey back then, certainly back then, was blended. So even now, 90% of the world's whiskey sold is blended. And if some of you have been on our tastings with Stephanie, who's talked about Japanese whiskies before, she'll tell you the importance of blended whiskey and how without blended whiskey, the landscape of whiskey today would be very different. So whiskey plays a really, really important part. And actually, Shane, what we should do is do a blended whiskey tasting and sort of dispel the myths around blended whiskey not being good. And yeah, because we've never done that, we should do a blended whiskey tasting as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, and blended whiskey is very important, but single malt really came around in the 60s. The first sort of malt brand was Glenfiddich in the 1960s. And up until that point, they did have distilleries making a single malt, but it was called self whiskey. It wasn't really called a single malt. So the concept of single malt wasn't really invented until Glenfiddich came along with their brand. So Tomatin, as we have it, is the brand we're doing today. So Tomatin whiskey. Have we told them it was Tomatin? No.
No, that's it. Just quickly before you go on to that, so just because I always find this, and I always explain to customers in such a way when they come in, because like you're saying about this whole disparaging people from blended, so it's kind of a little bit backward in the sense of how they, you know, the opinion of blended whiskey is bad normally in people's heads. They think it's always cheap, it's this, but the concept of obviously a blend is the fact is obviously it's different distilleries. But essentially, all whiskies, in a sense, are a blend, because you'll have a distillery doing all the barrels from their own distillery, which is then single malt, but it's still a mix. It's still essentially a blend of different barrels. But the fact of just doing it from different distilleries doesn't necessarily mean, you know, I don't see why people would see it as a thing of thinking, well, that's now a cheaper product. That's a lesser quality, which is, like you say, it's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Japanese, you know, they really wax lyrical about their blended whiskies, and you just got to look at, you know, some of the Nika blends. You got to look at Hibiki, which is a blend, you know, like massive prices, really good whiskies. So blended whiskey is not a bad thing, but we've just become accustomed, as you say, to sort of single malt being better or you know worth drinking as opposed to blends. But blended whiskey is very important to the whiskey industry. And how's that related today? Well, Tomatin is kind of steeped in Scottish history, not only as a distillery, but it sort of just represents a lot of distilleries in Scotland, and its own story represents Scottish whiskey. So we thought it'd be a really good one to bring back in and show you today. So we're going to cover 4 of them, and we're covering 2 of their new releases. So we'll come on to those in a while. But Tomatin is actually, so it's this bottle here. So this is Tomatin. You might have done the fine and rare tastings. We covered one of their high-end whiskies. I don't think we've included this in a tasting.
No, so actually one of our regulars, he helped me out yesterday because he has a massive backlog of, he's attended every single tasting. So ours advice means that we did the legacy, but in a cocktail serve. So we never actually tried it neat. And then we did the decades in the premium tasting, which was a very expensive whiskey. So we've done that before. Yeah,
so we're not trying anything that expensive, but we're trying some amazing whiskies from their range. So Tomatin as a brand really only came around in 1897 as a whiskey brand, but they've been making whiskey since the 16th century. So, and this is sort of why they're really important to sort of part of what I touched on earlier, is that they were really a whiskey that they had a function within the Highlands. So they're about 12 miles south of Inverness, and they sit just outside the border of Speyside. So they're technically Highlands, but if you look on a map and you look at the borders of the Speyside, they're kind of here, and Speyside is here. So they're not really a million miles away at all. You could probably see a Speyside distillery from them where they are. And what in the old days, they were quite a large facility. So travelers taking barley or cloth down to London would stop there, stay over the night, grab some whiskey, get some food, and then continue on their journey. And, inevitably, probably what would happen is that they would take some of that aqua vitae with them and take it down to London. And that's sort of how the word whiskey developed along with that story and spread sort of what whiskey is all about. But they really came into a brand in 1897, as I say, and they only lasted about 9 years before they closed down around 1905, 1906. And that was really, again, it's a common part of the whiskey story. So a lot of distilleries closed in that period because of the effects of the Patterson crash, which you can look up. And so they then finally opened up again, like a lot of distilleries, and started making whiskey again. I think at that point, we should probably pour the first one. And if you have 2 glasses, I would say pour the second one, pour bottle number 2 as well into a second glass to let it breathe. And I'll tell you why in a bit. But definitely start pouring your first one. I'm just trying to buy time so you can drink your cocktail, really. So what happened with them? They closed in 1906. They then got reopened a few years later, and they kind of grew, right? So they became massive. They just became a whiskey for blended whiskies. They became this huge facility. So in 1954, they went from 2 stills to 4 stills. Then in 61, they went to 8 stills. And then I think in 64, they went up to 10 stills. And then on my birthday, so 1974, they went up to 23 stills, right? And they were producing 10 million liters of whiskey, which is phenomenal back in that time, right? We're only talking mid, 50, 60, 50 years ago. And that's a phenomenal amount of whiskey. So they were only blended whiskies. That's their job, just blended whiskies. And the kind of whiskies they'll be seen in, well, they don't normally say, a lot of blends don't like to say what whiskies go in their brand. But if you think of a guy walking, that would definitely be one of the blends that you would find Tomatin whiskies in. So they're very, very well known for their whiskey quality. Now, coming along to 1986, when again, a lot of distilleries started having issues around, whiskey was tailing off significantly. So a lot of distilleries started closing. Tomatin was one of those distilleries that was suffering. And they almost went into liquidation around the late 80s, mid 80s. And then a Japanese company who was one of their biggest customers bought them. And then they started saying, okay, you know what, we need to start making a single malt. And so they started laying casks down for single malts. And in 2014, I think it was, 2005, they released their first whiskey, which was a 14-year-old malt, single malt whiskey. So it's a very common story. So their journey is exactly the same as Scottish history's journey, which is why I just thought it'd be really nice to sort of point out that place of history.
Someone just asked a question there, which is a bit not quite related, but just to the basics of whiskey. What grains are in whiskey? I'm not sure if he's meaning this particular one or whiskey in general, but I know you just did something recently on percentages of grains.
Yes, well, yeah. So grains are mainly used in blended whiskey or single grain whiskey. So a lot of Irish whiskey use grains because grains really are used in a continuous still, which is for blended whiskies essentially. In Scotch whiskey, typically in single malt, it's always malted barley. So that's what is always used. And then in blended grain whiskies, it will tend to be a wheat or a rye or a corn or a mixture of all of them. And you can add malted barley as well. I hope that kind of answers the question. So what we're trying tonight is all single malt, so malted barley, all from Scotland, all from Tomatin, the distillery. And so let's pour the first bottle, right? So let's pour the first one into the glass. Now, as Shane said, you should have a glass, and we like to use a tasting glass, so something that's along this sort of style. And it's not very big, quite kind of small actually as a size, but it's perfect for tasting because it allows you to nose and smell the aromas. Shane, didn't you get any of these, by the way?
I haven't got a legacy, so anyone I didn't have. So the first, but I've had the legacy so much, I don't really need to try that. I've got the other three, so.
Okay. So let's pour it into the glass, give it a swirl around. Let's take it around like so. And you'll notice how lovely sort of oily it is. That, you know, there's these lovely sort of legs rolling down the glass. It's a lovely kind of golden color as well, which tells you a lot about the whiskey. So this particular one is only aged in bourbon barrels, so it's going to be a lighter whiskey. You're not going to get those darker colors. So it's bourbon and virgin oak casks only on that.
It's very, very light color on that one.
Yeah, really light color, but you'll be surprised. You know, light color, light doesn't mean bad, or it doesn't mean that it's not old. No. It just means the type of cask. So let's go for a nose. So if you guys let me know what you're getting, it might be interesting if you guys tell me what you get. Oh, the nose is really good. I mean, Tomatin generally has a lot of flavour, has a lot of depth, even though it has a lightness and a softer side, which is their style of whiskey. So they're not sort of creating this big malty, you know, they're not doing a Macallan style whiskey. It's much softer, which is really nice because all the way through their range they keep that style. So seeing as we're a little bit light on comments, I'm going to jump in.
So being a bourbon, this is more, it'll be more like the vanillas.
Yeah,
maybe like a light citrus or something like that.
Yeah,
this had this is known for having like a tropically kind of tone. No, is that right, or is this?
Yeah,
was it this one? Legacy? Yeah,
you get a bit of tropical notes from the wood, you know, in the charring process. So you're going to get a bit of those sort of coconut. You'll get a bit of sometimes pineapple.
Pineapple, that's the thing I'm thinking of.
You know,
yeah.
You're definitely getting that vanilla that you talk about, maybe some burnt orange. Definitely a bit of nuttiness as well. Let's go for a taste. So percentage wise, it's at 43, and all Tomatin tends to be a little bit higher than normal, so they don't really do anything at 40. So 43%. Tim said spiced fruits on the nose. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're definitely getting some of that nutmeg and maybe some of that cinnamon. A touch of orange, definitely. I always seem to get orange with this one.
Really? Is that orange in there? Yeah. I
always get orange every time. I don't know why.
It's that bourbon link. It's that bourbon link.
Yeah, maybe some people get, I don't know, maybe some people get lemon curd or lemony sort of. It's definitely buttery as well. Maybe sort of butterscotch. Let's go for a little taste. So when you taste, generally, you want to let it sort of roll around your palate, let it move around, soak up the texture as well as the flavors. So you can really sort of get to grips with what's happening with the whiskey and how it's been affected. So let me know if you get any particular flavors, and I'll tell you what I get. Shane, do you remember getting? Do you remember getting anything on this?
I remember the palate being quite similar to the nose. I don't think it tastes, if I remember correctly, I don't think it tastes as spicy as it smell. I think Tim's right. There's a bit of spice on the nose, but I can't remember getting much on the palate. I remember it being a citrus, more of that kind of lemony side.
Yeah, it's very much
vanilla, honey, that kind of thing.
Yeah. As an entry level whiskey, it's called the Legacy. It's not aged, so it's around 8 years old, roughly.
It's very smooth though for the price point. It's a very smooth whiskey. If you I said, if you let it really salivate round, you let your saliva build up as well. I think by the time you actually go down to swallow down, there's not much burn, which is pretty impressive for an entry level whiskey.
Yeah, but which is what I really like about the Tomatin range, which is just generally everything they do is quite soft. It's rounded. It's very easy. There's no burn. There's no harshness, and that's not what they're about. So if you're looking for a gift for, someone who's starting into whiskey, or someone that wants to try whiskey for the first time, this is a really good one to go for. So yeah, Alice is very smooth. You're definitely getting, like Shane said, almost replicating what you get on the nose. So you're getting a bit of wood, you're getting a lovely citrus flavor, you're getting those soft peaches, maybe a bit of that coconut, tropical pineapple or something.
Well, how old is the Legacy? Do they say on there what they? I know it's not an age stated one, but do we know roughly what?
It's roughly about 8 years.
Okay.
Roughly 8 years.
Be interesting to know how much time it's spent in each, because obviously I know it starts in American oak and then it's finished in bourbon. I'd imagine it spent quite a bit of time in the bourbon with that much flavour in it, I would have thought.
So it's only bourbon.
Oh, it's only bourbon cask.
Only bourbon, but it's gone from bourbon oak, so something that's contained bourbon, and then moved into virgin oak, so something that hasn't had anything.
Right,
it's American wood.
Yeah.
So it's great, so it's gone through that, and that just brings a bit of extra, fruitiness into the whiskey. Yeah, Tim, let me know if you've had it, if we've had this before. I don't think we've had this one. I know you've done a lot of our whiskey tastings, and you might have remembered it. I personally can't remember having it.
No, like Al said, it was only served in a cocktail serve. I think that's the only time we've used it. So this is the first time trying it neat on the tasting.
Okay. So Tomatin actually just now, I think this week, at the International Spirit Challenge, they just won gold for the Tomatin 12.
Oh wow!
So they've so as a distillery, it's just lucky we happened to choose them, but they've just picked up gold at the International Spirits Challenge. So that's good. We're not tasting the 12 tonight, but it'll give you an idea of the quality of what they do. Yeah, it's super smooth, very, very easy, but it is entry, right? So what we're going to do now is only go up from here. So if you like that, you're only going to, well, everyone has their own taste, but hopefully you'll like what we're doing next. And yeah, a touch of vanilla, definitely, Tim, definitely that's in there.
Yeah, I think vanilla is one of the strongest tones in there. It definitely comes across.
Yeah, and it's a classic thing with bourbon, right? It's just a bourbon characteristic, so you're always going to get a lot of that in there. So Tomatin, it's a really nice distillery. It's quite big now. It's quite vast. They only now produce about 2 million litres. So it's actually quite small if you think of it in that way. And a lot of their time is now spent on single malt. I don't think they do much for blends anymore. Certainly not doing 2 million. I don't think they do. And if you could put that into context, so a nice sort of fairly decent, family-owned craft whiskey distiller now would do about 750 litres. So Tomatin doing 2 million, for their history and their age, they've sort of really reined it back in. But they're really concentrating on the quality. So what we're going to do, and the other thing about Tomatin is their quality of cask. They really, really choose good casks for their whiskies, and that's kind of their thing they focused on to make sure that they can produce a really good spirit to put into a really good cask. And we are going to a cask strength now, which is the Tomatin cask strength. So it's all about cask strength. And we've chucked it in second because we've got two special whiskies at the end. So so hopefully you poured out this into your glass earlier when I sort of mentioned it a few minutes back, and that would help. That would really help open up the spirit. And you might want a touch of water as well. But we are going to try it neat and nose it neat, and then add water just to see how it changes. Did I tell you what Tomatin means? Did I say that?
No.
No. Tomatin is it's hill of juniper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oddly, and they don't make gin, but it means hill of juniper. And yeah, it's just a nice little. Well, I say little, it was quite big, but it's a really nice distillery, and you should definitely book a tour there.
I think every single person I've had come in to the store that's mentioned they've been to that distillery said that it's a fantastic tour. I
bet. I can imagine. Yeah, I've not been yet. I've driven past it, but I do need to go.
It's got a good nose, though, isn't it?
Ah, fantastic nose.
And it's one of those ones where it's not overbearing, considering it's a 57%.
Yeah. So look, we're going to have to sort of walk through this together, I think. So let's go for the nose. First of all, let's just check the color, right? You check the color from the last one. Now, this is non-aged statement again, so this is not aged again, right? So it's likely to be 8 to 9 years old again, but the color difference,
so much darker.
So this is aged in Oloroso as well. So now we're seeing bourbon aged with Oloroso. So the color is being added to this.
And straight away, you get those red fruits on the nose as well because of that sherry cask.
Yeah. And also, before you even do that, just look at the glass after you've sort of swirled it around, and you see the higher ABV means extra sugar, means extra sweetness, extra oiliness. And so you see that's really, really sort of thick coming down the side of the glass.
Yeah, it's
that
big
lovely
legs.
sort of interaction has created that. And yeah, as the comments are saying, it's already a really, really nice nose. So what do you get? What do you get on the nose?
Getting some orange in there again.
Yeah, but it's really, really sort of candied oranges.
Yeah, very, very sweet.
Yeah,
almost caramel. Yeah, a lot sweeter.
Yeah, it's not that fresh that we had in the other one. Toffee apple, I love that. Yeah, Emily said toffee apple.
Apple's a good shout. Very good shout.
Yeah.
Bit of spice. Definitely a bit of spice.
Bit of spice. Bit of nuttiness.
See, that's what I'm struggling with. Nuts. You said that.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't mean it's not like a peanut. It's kind of like a. It's almost like a. Do you know what I mean? Like a pecan nut.
Yeah, I was about to say. Do you mean like pecan or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, or a walnut. It's much sort of nutty. Yeah, really. Like these whiskies, you could just know, right? And being at that strength, it's just going to carry so much flavour.
But you want to put it with some kind of ice cream, wouldn't you?
Say again?
You want to put it with some kind of ice cream by the nose.
Yeah, ice cream. Yeah. You could, you know what? You could put it in the freezer, right?
Like raisins.
Really get nice and thick and syrupy, and then pour it over ice cream. That'd be really good. Right. So we're going to go for a taste now. 57%. So cask strength. Let's go for the first little sip and just dab it on the tip of our tongue and just get our palate used to that alcohol strength. And then we'll go for a nicer sip and just sort of see if we can get any flavors from it. And then we'll add some water. So let's try that first one. No burn, right? 57% and no burn.
Yeah, if you really let it salivate, there's nothing when it goes down.
There's
burn.
Nothing there. There's nothing there. You're not even getting that like alcohol kind of like fire. It's just really, really clean. You're getting that, that Christmas cake.
Yeah. Definitely.
You're getting a touch of dryness because of that Oloroso, and it's just really, really packed the flavour. So let's go for a bigger taste and see if we can just get any more flavour from it.
Again, apples, which are quite strong.
Yeah, I think apple is there. I think apple is there.
Quite spicy. There's a lot more spice now coming through. That's
A lot more
decking
spice
here.
this time. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot more spice, a lot more pepper. He's got that tingle, bit of maltiness. So you're getting some of that maltiness now.
Is there like that was dryness, sauciness coming to it?
I'm not, but
Was it just dry?
It's dry. It's definitely dry. Like a bit of dryness in there. That tingles there. It's almost oaty. You're getting a bit of oat in there. You definitely get like that.
Get that. Yeah, it's like filling. Oaty always reminds me of filling.
And it's berries, lots of red berries, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You're getting some of that sherry, right? You're feeling that sherry cask influence. Really good, but crucially at 57%, no. But like I'm not feeling any. If you told me that's 57%, I would not have believed you. So let's add a bit of water, right? So let's do a couple of drops.
Would you do that? I'm going to try it now, but would you do it? I don't think it needs it. With something that's got so much flavour already and no burn. Me personally, I wouldn't go for that. I mean, we'll give it a go. I'll definitely give it a go.
Do you know the only reason why I say it, and I think we should try it with the others as well, is because at home I started adding just a touch of water to my whiskies just to see how it changed.
Yeah.
And I never did that. I never used to add water, but it changes it so much now that it's really good to taste it and just see how those flavors expand.
Yeah.
And develop. So yeah, let's add a bit of water to this.
So when we say adding water, guys, the best way to really do it is actually have your glass of water, put your finger in, and actually let the drops off your finger into the glass, because you can always add, you can't take away. So if you do it that way, you'll never over dilute. And bearing in mind you obviously have a tasting measure, that's a good way of doing it.
And what Shay's saying is really just you want to add a couple of drops, right? So we did a tasting in the shop with with a guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, you should add some water." So we added some water, and I added a couple of drops, and he looked at me like I was a weirdo. And he goes, "I thought we were adding water." I was like, "Yeah, but you just add a couple of drops. That's all you need to do." And that will change, and then you can try again, add a bit more, and you'll see over time how that changes. So I've literally added a couple of drops, and now it's really opened up to be a little bit more floral. You are getting, actually no, it's not floral. It is touch of floral in there, but it's changed from sort of darker fruits into lighter fruit.
See, I'm the complete opposite. Now I find it being more spicy.
Do you?
Yeah, spicy, vanilla.
Everyone's going to pick some. Yeah,
it's now gone really light.
Pick something different.
Mm. Yeah, and it comes across stronger actually now with the water.
So, yeah, you know what? So now I'm getting more. I actually feel like I am getting more dried fruit. I'm getting more chocolate.
Mm.
Maybe a bit of espresso or something.
I'm definitely getting chocolate now. Yeah, yeah, but that was kind of in the back of my head, I think, on the first couple of tastes.
Mm.
And it's dry now with the water.
Is it?
Tannins at the end.
Let's try that.
Yeah, much more tannins with the water. Now my mouth feels drier.
And on the palate, that fire, there's more fire.
Yeah, it's more fire. Yeah, definitely.
More fire.
Isn't that weird? A couple of drops of water. Wow.
And it's really opened it up, literally just a couple of drops. And you're right, on the palate, it is drier.
Yeah.
I thought it'd take it up and bring out some lighter notes, but no, it's become a bit drier.
Yeah, I think 100% this is one I would definitely prefer neat, which is really because definitely with a cask strength you would expect to potentially have to add water. You do in a lot of ones, but this is one I would probably definitely stick with neat, I think.
You know what? I would have it with water.
Really?
Yeah.
But then you like things a bit spicier, I find.
I really like it with water. Yeah. I think it's got all those things that it had just opened up, and then it just allows for other things. So I love that coffee and that chocolate that I got.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice.
Tim's right. A good late night whiskey after a meal. Yeah, bang on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's lovely. So actually, that I mean, I've always liked the cask strength Tomatin, and it's always been one of my favorites. And what I really like is, again, that the house style, if you like, that they always manage to keep that Tomatin style within the whiskey.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
It does. The flavour definitely lingers. It's there for a while. That dryness, the spicy notes carry on. The chocolate is what lingers for me more, I think, than anything else. It's almost like, but then you do get, the more you even just play around with your mouth as well after. Now I'm getting like the apple, almost like that crumble kind of tone.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting some of that fruit as well.
Yeah, good,
really nice.
Good whiskey. Good whiskey.
Really nice.
I don't think I've ever paid much attention to the cask strength before, which is probably my downfall. That's my mistake, actually, because I love the Tomatin range. I always push towards more the 14 for the port cask, only because that's down my kind of route. Yeah. The cask strength, I think I've had it just a handful of times, but really kind of tasting it to appreciate it. It's actually, that's good.
Very really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. So what Tomatin decided to do, and they do this annually, is something they like I said, they do annually. They release a limited edition, right? So they'll do something with a brand, or they'll do something with a special cask, and they will release something from their old catalogue, and just age it in a different cask. And they do this annually, right? So they did something a couple of years ago. I can't remember. Last year they did a Fino sherry.
Yeah. The year before was Amontillado.
Was it Amontillado?
Amontillado was the year before, yeah, and the one just gone was Fino.
Oh, yeah. Amontillado before, yeah, and Fino this time last year. And this year they decided to go a little bit bigger. I can't remember why. I'm not sure if it's special occasion, but they've gone with what they've called the French cask collection. So we've got two of them tonight, which is why we thought we'd chuck them in. So we've got number 1 and number 2. Right?
I'm waiting for you to pronounce this first one.
Mombazillac.
Mombazillac. I couldn't get it.
Mombazillac. So these really, really nice coloured boxes, like really, really good. So just to give you an idea, the old box, that's the legacy box. It's more of a kind of a sort of a pale brown beige sort of colour, and then you've got these really vibrant sort of green and kind of purplish colour. So these are 2 French cask collections, and there's another 2 obviously, which we might do at another tasting. Some of them aren't released yet. So the first one we're going to try is Mombazillac. So Mombazillac is a region in France, a wine region. It's actually got its own AOC, so its own designated appellation, which means that they make wine to a certain way and it's recognized within that region. And they're down in southwest France, so the actual region is Bergerac. If any of you watched, nothing to do with the TV show. It's the Bergerac region, area of South France, and the place is called Mombazillac. And the grapes they use are Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. So it's quite a special kind of area. So it's a sweet wine they produce there, and it's kind of a sort of it's kind of in a valley. So they have this oceanic kind of maritime feel to their wines, because various rivers run into the region. Wow. And the confluence of the rivers create this this humidity, and so the grapes start getting this rot, right, called botrytis, which is actually was perceived as a bad thing centuries ago, but now is a good thing because they realize it creates a really sweet grape. So they encourage, well, I mean, it's part of the area, it's the climate, they can't get away from it. So they use it to their advantage. So the area creates this really nice, sweet grape. And it's kind of figgy, it's nutty, it's peachy. And so what they've done is they've taken the Tomatin barrels, which were distilled. I had to write this one down because I couldn't remember the date. They had to distill this particular one on the 25th of April in 2008. And in 2017, they moved it into Montbazillac wine casks. And so they then released it in 2021. So it's been a good 4 years. Huh?
The nose on this is amazing.
Yeah, so when I was pouring it, you can really get some of that nose. So it sits 4 years in that cask and then just sort of picks up that extra color, right? So that color that you see there is totally natural. They don't add caramel. They don't do anything to the color. It's just natural. It's non-chill filtered, so they're not filtering anything out. So if it gets really cold, you'll notice a little bit of louching or clouding. And on the nose, right. So on the nose straight away,
banana, right?
You get some of that. Huh?
That's banana, right?
Say again?
That's banana. That's definitely banana.
You might get banana. You might get banana. I'm getting a touch of banana, yeah. Yeah, Al saying reminds him of Macmira.
Yeah, actually, yes.
I can see what he means.
Definitely honey, banana.
So I'm getting a touch of honey. Yeah, definitely honey. Maybe a bit of peach.
Yeah, or apricot. Yeah, those kind of white stone fruits.
Montbazillac has a bit of fig, so maybe if anyone's getting a bit of fig in there, I'm not sure. Totally different, right? So the structure of the whiskies are the same from the three that we've had, but that addition of the Montbazillac cask has really, really changed it. So it's a 12-year-old whiskey.
See, it's something that's come to my mind recently, which I have told people, you know, not to kind of tend to rely on it too much. But I have found that if you're really trying to practice your nosing and tasting, that if you're one of these people that struggles, I know we've got a couple of regulars, like even Simon will say that as well as equal. He'll say the same thing. He struggles to pick out flavors and noses, but I think it's amazing that if you get told, so if you read the label on the back of a box to find out what you should have, that your brain will help you pick out those notes. So now that you've said to me fig, I can kind of see where you're coming from and I can get it, but I wouldn't have necessarily picked that out originally.
Yeah, so I did this whiskey tasting the other day, right? And someone said burnt rubber, and all I got was burnt rubber after that.
Yeah,
that's it. All I got was burnt rubber, and so it kind of it didn't ruin it, but all I got was burnt rubber. And it's exactly what you're saying about this. Someone says something, and suddenly you start tasting it, right?
Yeah.
Or you start smelling it. So that's why I said at the start, you guys tell me what you get rather than me tell you what I get, because I didn't want to influence you, which I realize I probably do for the last year and a half. So I wanted you to tell me what you get this time, so I don't then hit you with burnt rubber.
It's like whiskey having its own Facebook pixel. You say something and it throws it at you.
Starts throwing it back at you. So let's go for a little taste.
It's definitely like a cooked banana that I get on the nose, though. That's really the strongest thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so tell me what you're getting. Anyone? A touch of water in the number 3 makes it taste a little buttery, almost like figs and butter. Yeah, okay. So I'm definitely going to give that a go, and I encourage everyone to give it a go.
Yeah, I'm going to try water now after the first one.
I'm definitely getting.
I'm getting
spice.
apples, and apples is coming through again.
Apple.
Even almost like toffee apple again.
Yeah.
Apricot's still there.
Say again.
The apricot's still there, which is on the nose. Because you would, I'm guessing you would always. It's even in your head, you would think it would have. If you're saying it's got Sauvignon to it, you would expect white stone fruits, that kind of tone. So it's kind of following suit with the cask.
I think so. I think that's definitely going to be influenced in there. Yeah. Just add a
There's a
couple
little
of
bit of
drops
spice as well, still.
Yeah, definitely got spice. Add a bit of water in there, just a couple of drops. It's almost unnoticeable to the actual volume of the drink.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very small amount of this one actually because we didn't have much left, so I don't want to add too much water.
Now I feel like I'm getting almost chocolatey banana.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots more of a cocoa tone coming through now. But the banana now is died down.
Has it? For me, it kind of feels it's enhanced, but figs and butter, Tim said. I feel I'm getting more coffee and chocolate and.
I'm always getting like a not treacle, like a maple syrup as well. That kind
Yeah,
of.
I think maple syrup, definitely maple syrup. Yeah, yeah. So those richer, darker, flavors is what I'm getting. Yeah.
See, now for me, with the water gone, or also with the water added, I'm not getting much of those stone fruits now. Now it's more about the warming stuff. So I've got that kind of the dryness of almost like a chocolate, that syrup.
Yeah.
And then, I'm still getting a bit of the apple, and then the spice. That spice is now again elevated because of that water.
I'm totally got maple syrup. Totally got maple syrup on the palate. Maple syrup with, if you put it on a pancake with butter, that.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhat Tim's talking about that.
Which is like buttery. Yeah, he's talking about
And you get in some of that lovely sort of breadiness from the whiskey anyway. So maybe that maltiness, it's almost like that maple syrup.
Could be a touch of cinnamon there as well, actually. Maybe that's what I'm picking out.
Yeah, it could be cinnamon. I think there is some spice, some sort of spice. Yeah, and he's got butterscotch. Yeah.
Yeah, butterscotch, definitely. Yeah, I can get butterscotch. This is one that this is one of your favourite tricks, Jess. This is one that I'd love to come back to in a bit.
Yeah. I'd leave that till the
morning.
morning.
To the glass, yeah.
Leave that till the morning, come back to it. Oh, it's good. Really good. So first time for me in trying that in a cask like that. So I've never had that before, let alone heard that cask, but really good.
Yeah, that's the first time I've had it as well. I've had other wine casks, but not that one. Never before.
But the flavors are amazing. Really nice. And that sweetness of that, the casks that the wine has been in has really changed it, right? It's really changed the.
And this was a 2008. Was that 12-year-old? Is that right?
12-year-old.
Yeah.
12-year whiskey. So we only got 2 cases of it. That's all we got given, I think.
Really? Wow. We can't get any more. No,
so not a lot. So it really is on like a limited allocation.
Have we had all that allocation in though? No, not yet.
No.
Yeah.
So the price is really good as well because all these are around the 65 mark.
Yeah, 65.95 those are actually. Yeah. The first batch we had in have all gone of that one. So the purple went straight. So we have to order in that last allocation. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to get that in. So the purple's all gone from what we had. And we've still got a couple of the next one left.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. This is our final whiskey. It's crazy. So this is also, as I mentioned, part of the French cask collection. This is number 2 of the 4. As I say, maybe we'll look to put the next 2 in at some point. one of them hasn't been released yet, so we might wait. But this is a really nice Sauterne cask. So some of you would have had Sauterne whiskies before. Some of you would have had Sauterne wines. It's actually a region next to Montbazillac. So looking at it, I don't know if there's going to be much difference between the two. But it's interesting because they're right next to each other, and flavor-wise, they're almost identical, right? They both suffer from the botrytis. They're both, you know, maybe this one doesn't have as much humidity because of its location, so that could be a slight difference. It might not have some of that sort of coastalness to it. But in terms of the grape, yes, definitely a sweet wine. Flavor-wise, very, very similar. And this is also 12 years old. So age-wise, exactly the same as the previous one. This one, they distilled it on the 19th of September in 2008. And then they moved it into Sauterne casks. I had to make a note of this on the 13th of July in 2017. So it's almost coming up to the anniversary of being 4 years old in Sauterne casks.
Oh wow. Yeah, we've had quite a few Sauterne casks in before, actually. The nose isn't as strong as the Montbazillac.
No?
No, it's nice, but it's nowhere near as fragrant and aromatic as that.
Okay, so that's one thing. So I remember when I poured this out, when I was pouring this out in the shop, and I'm getting a touch of it now, I kept getting this tobacco. I kept getting that brown cigar leaf.
See, that I can't get. But I'm trying to think now what that would smell like. I'm not a smoker.
And I'm getting it now. I'm getting it now, and I thought that's really interesting. But I couldn't find any tasting notes anywhere within Sauterne or this whiskey to say tobacco or cigar leaf or anything. So it's just something that is happening with me that I'm picking up this tobacco. I'm getting a remnants of it now. I was getting caramel. Yeah.
Yeah, caramel's there, like a maltiness, or there's a yeah, I mean peach or apricot again. It's just not as fragrant as that first.
No, I mean, if you look at the sweet wine profile of Sauterne, it's very similar to the previous cask. So you're getting nuts, you're getting peach, you're getting honey. So flavor-wise again, but the cask is actually really different on the whiskey.
It could. This one I've got a very small amount of, so maybe it's just there's not enough in there to really give me a good.
I think it's that maltiness is really.
Yeah, the maltiness I'm guessing definitely. Yeah, and the sweetness is definitely like an apricot or peach.
Yeah, it is, but it's almost baked, isn't it? It's baked like it's in some sort of pie.
Yeah, so Tim's right. It's malty. There's tangy, but is that tangy the stone fruits? I don't know. Or is there citrus maybe?
Yeah, I think you're going to get something from the actual
orange or clementine or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're going to get that in the previous cask, and also a touch from this. Let's go for a taste. Percentage is 46.
Don't taste like a 46. Tastes lighter.
Does it? I was going to say, compared to 57, I do feel this is 46. I do notice that strength.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's for me. It's just straight down.
I'm getting that pepper as well, tingling on my tongue.
Yeah, I would say it's drier, so it feels like a bit of pepper.
This is definitely different to the other one, right? The other one had layers of complexity. This is kind of almost kind of saying I'm this and I'm just that. You know, it's ginger, it's darker, touch of coconut, yeah.
Or is it just nuts?
Touch of coconut, touch of sweetness in there, yeah, from that coconut.
Yeah, it's definitely coconut. It's definitely a bit tropical.
But it's not as kind of, it's got not got as much breadth as the other one. Shall we add some water? Try it with water.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually got enough left to try. Let me see if I can.
I've got a tiny bit here. Got a bit too much water in now. I'm still getting tobacco. I'm still getting brown leaf. Even more so now. Yeah, you know what Tim's just mentioned. Number 4 is not as smooth, and I agree with him.
It's definitely drier. It's not as sweet.
It's much earthier.
That's exactly it. It's definitely earthier. And actually, the water just elevates that. Now it's really dry. But it's nice. This is one of the ones you remember. Sometimes you want a whiskey that's just, not overly sweet at one point, nice and dry.
That coconut has really come through with that water. And it is dry. It's quite.
This is one that I would famously pair with my chocolate.
Would you?
Me and my chocolate bands, yeah, definitely. I would have a nice chocolate, potentially even an orange dark chocolate, because to go with that kind of candied tone that's in there. And it's nice and dry. I always tend to find the dry ones are good with chocolate.
Yeah, that bitterness. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely dry. It's weird because these are sweet wine casks. So you'd think as a sweet wine you'd influence some of that.
Yeah, which is that's the strange thing about it. I mean, the 3 wasn't too dry. I found it dry when I added the water, but this one was almost dry from the get-go, which then is very different to what the actual wine would be out of that.
But that's quite nice because with sherry or port, you're going to get this nice big sweet finish, right? And you're going to get these, you almost know what you're getting. Whereas when they start playing with different casks, you're taking on a little bit of a journey. So you try different flavors, you get different profiles, and it's not so kind of one-dimensional. It's not like as easy as knowing what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And even this Sauterne cask is very different to other Sauterne casks that you get. It's a lot more complex without being too obvious.
Yeah. Definitely. I like that though.
Yeah,
there's something about it though. The more it lingers, it's a really nice aftertaste in there. It's not something I would normally. More my flavor palette is the one before the Montbazillac.
Yeah, I think
this has got a really nice finish to it though. It's staying with me a lot more.
So these were the 4 we tasted. We had the Legacy and the Cask Strength all over the place there, and then we had the Montbazillac and the Sauterne, all from Tomatin. Really good whiskies, right?
Yeah. And Tomatin's always been one of those ones that I think we've always stocked it for a good 4 or 5 years now, and I don't think they ever come out of anything that's bad. I mean, going back on those limited editions that we've got, I know last year they brought out the Fino, which we still have, but the Amontillado was still one of my favourite whiskies of all time at the moment for a long while, and it's tough to get hold of. Even we can't get hold of it now. Yeah, but that one that's always stuck with me, because the moment you pop the lid, that Amontillado sherry just hit you like a wall.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
that was really good. I really like this one. I think I really like that one tonight out of the 2 new ones.
Yeah, that is very nice.
That was really good. 4 is lighter than 3 for me. Al's gone the opposite way. Al said that 4 is lighter than 3. See, it just shows you, right? Everyone's so different. Everyone's really different.
Tim's gone for the cask strength. Okay. Which did, to be honest, did surprise me again today, because I didn't give it enough time of day. I think last time, but for something so strong, that is very accessible. And the price point on that one's good. And that sits around about the 57 mark.
57
for 57%. So yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. So yeah, so look, these are all limited editions, right? The last three, the limited editions. Like I said, we only got a couple of cases, and one of them, the Monbazillac, is already sold, so we need to get another case in. So yeah, you all get 15% discount on the tasting tonight as well. So if you do want anything, then please let us know.
Yeah, drop us a DM or give us an email. Just reply to your email, which you had the link on. Let us know anything you want to order. Yeah, you get 15% off. We have some of the number 4 in stock, and the Monbazillac we'll obviously put in for our last allocation to get through if anyone's going to go for that one, which I think some people are saying that they would. That would be my kind of choice, but yeah, that's definitely one to go for. We haven't actually got anything specifically booked in at the moment for tastings. We've had a bit of a hectic month. It's been quite busy. We've got a lot going on within this month because we've got a few events starting from our festival side. And obviously we're looking forward to stuff we've got going on in London. So we are going to try and get some stuff out. Hopefully by next week, we'll get some links out for potentially another gin one and another whiskey one. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media and on emails for that. But yeah, I'm just double checking this order here. So Emily's now coming as well. So for her, it's number 3 as well. Yeah. So it's actually quite a mix of what people go for and what they like. Yeah. Some for 4, some for 3, some for 2.
Yeah, it's funny.
Which is good though. It shows number one for an ad. So again, number 1 is also one for whiskey purists as well, because it's very stereotypical but very, very kind of standard whiskey tone. I do find a lot of these, sherry casks and Pacific wine casks are very much for kind of the newer generation, isn't it? Because they weren't really around as much years back. So yeah. Cool, good stuff. All right, so yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, guys. Drop us those orders by email or DM. And yeah, like I said, enjoy tomorrow. Enjoy your Father's Day. I think the weather's supposed to be okay-ish, but enjoy it. Have a good meal, which most people do, and look out your socials for our next tasting. And other than that, yeah, have a great weekend and see you guys soon.
Thank you very much. This guy.